If I'm a betting man, which I am, then I'm betting the Pittsburgh Steelers make one of two trades before the trade deadline this season. And everybody talking about how the Pittsburgh Steelers are done and they're not going to do anything. And this is their team. And these are the reasons why. What have you been watching all summer? What have you seen happen for the last 6 months that gives you any indication that the Pittsburgh Steelers have not tried and tried and tried to make more and more happen, and all of a sudden they're done? They're not done. They're not even close. The Pittsburgh Steelers are likely calling everybody right now. Omar Khan probably spent the whole bye week texting other GMs, on the phone with other teams, just scouting the market. Who's there? Who's not there? Who can I get my hands on right now or at bare minimum before week 8? And I have almost all faith that if a deal presents itself, which that doesn't always happen in the NFL, you have to have two sides and it has to make sense for a trade to occur. And we'll explain why here in a second. Then the Steelers are going to make something happen because they want to, because they've wanted to. There is nothing at all summer or season that has shown you otherwise. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to another episode of Steelers to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers are set to play the Cleveland Browns in 2 days. I am thrilled to get some actual football, as all of us are. Dylan Gabriel, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Broderick Jones, the return of Joey Porter Jr. So exciting, but the Steelers are 2 or just over 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. And anybody sitting around saying, nah, this is the team, this is the roster for the rest of 2025, where have you been? Because the rock you've been living under is quite large and probably soundproof, which means you haven't gotten to hear Jonnu Smith or Jalen Ramsey talking smack for the last 4 months, or DK Metcalf or Aaron Rodgers press conferences being screamed from the world, even when he's talking about Guinness. The Pittsburgh Steelers have shown every bit of their hand this season, every single bit of it. And everyone all of a sudden seems to forget it, that the Pittsburgh Steelers have tried and tried and tried to make things happen. And even at the positions that we now say, well, they didn't make something happen, so why would they now? They tried. They tried right up until the last moment to make something happen. And now they find themselves in a situation that they were trying to avoid. And you're telling me that they're going to stop trying? No, the Steelers are going to continue to try. There are two trades that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could make before the trade deadline. One goes in, one comes out. The Pittsburgh Steelers either add someone or they remove someone. Both big names in my head, and both completely game changers for offense and defense. Let's start with the trade in. Anybody, and I will continue to call you out throughout this entire episode, who says that the Pittsburgh Steelers didn't get another wide receiver, so why would they suddenly get another wide receiver? Did you forget about Gabe Davis? Because, yeah, Gabe Davis isn't Tyreek Hill, and he's not Jalen Waddle, and he's not Terry McLaurin. But Gabe Davis was in Pittsburgh 4 days before the season started for the Pittsburgh Steelers to try every last-ditch effort to get another wide receiver in here, because they weren't done. And they saw the writing on the wall that if something happened, they needed to avoid this, and they had to bring somebody in. So it wasn't lack of effort for the Steelers to not have somebody in. It wasn't, well, this is who we tied our ship to, we're good. That's not the case at all. The Pittsburgh Steelers found themselves in this situation after a summer of bringing Gabe Davis in for the first time, trading George Pickens, which it takes two to tango. And that's what this all comes down to, is we could talk Miami Dolphins, we could talk Washington Commanders, we could talk whoever, Gabe Davis is another prime example here. George Pickens doesn't get traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers unless the Dallas Cowboys give them a third round pick. Because in the NFL draft, they were only giving him a fourth. And they were saying George Pickens isn't worth a fourth round pick. We're good. We're going to keep him. We're going to have him and DK and Calvin Austin, and we're going to be just fine. Right after the draft, the Cowboys said, no, we'll give you a third. Okay, well, we're going to take a third. It takes two to tango. And that's what the Steelers have been presented with all year long. They brought Gabe Davison twice. They traded for DK Metcalf. They called the Washington Commanders to say, hey, is Terry McLaurin really available? And what would it cost to get him here? And the reason that they didn't get him here is not because they weren't willing to pay the premium to bring in Terry McLaurin. It was because Terry McLaurin wanted more money than DK Metcalf and a higher place on the depth chart. And the Steelers said no. That's why Terry McLaurin didn't end up in Pittsburgh. It's not because they weren't willing to pay for him. They were willing to pay. They called Chris Olave and the New Orleans Saints. They called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Pittsburgh Steelers have done everything they possibly can to add a wide receiver. And now that Calvin Austin is banged up and they're going to get a real look at if Roman Wilson is any sort of answer, and the guess is he's not, you're telling me that all of a sudden they're done? Doesn't make any sense. What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming. You can bet on it. And the best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers who bet $5 get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. With the bye week behind us, now is the time to get in on the action. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. Then use your bonus bets to stay in on the action and bet DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And don't worry, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you're fine. You could still join in on all of the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. New customers who bet $5 get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers and get in on the action only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Miami Dolphins have this guy named Jalen Waddle that I will continue to say makes too much sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I truly believe the Steelers will make a phone call, if not a couple, to say, is he really available and what can we get him for? And I wouldn't be stunned at all if the Steelers made another trade with the Miami Dolphins this year and brought their third best player to the Pittsburgh Steelers in Jalen Waddle. I would not be surprised at all whatsoever. Maybe it's another team. Maybe it's Las Vegas. Maybe it's New Orleans again. Maybe it is Tampa Bay. I don't know. But what I do know is that I highly anticipate the Steelers getting very close, if not making it happen, to a wide receiver trade. To saying, this is the third guy that we're going to use. It's not because Roman Wilson's awesome and we just don't use three wide receivers. That's why he's not on the field. No, it's because the Steelers don't trust Scotty Miller or Roman Wilson to be a valuable part of this offense compared to the other guys that they have to use. They're not going to put either of those guys on the field when Darnell Washington, Jonnu Smith, and Pat Freiermuth are available. But if you have a Chris Olave, if you have a Jalen Waddle, you'll put them on the field and you'll feel pretty good about it. And I think the Steelers are searching. And it would not surprise me even in the slightest if they made something happen, because they have been trying to make this happen for over a year and they aren't done yet. They have the cap space. They have the draft capital. There is no pushing need to say, well, we got to go get Arch Manning. No, the draft class stinks. It's changing quickly. And at this point, maybe you just build and try to win a Super Bowl this year so that you don't have to worry as much next year. So that the pressure is off you significantly next year. It makes too much sense. The other one is a guy leaving the Steelers. The Steelers have an abundance of outside linebackers. The 49ers want an edge rusher. And I don't know which one it's going to be. If I had to guess, it's Alex Highsmith. But I think the Steelers would acknowledge a call. I think they would have a conversation. And I don't know if I support it. I think that TJ goes down and you have Nick Herbig and Alex Highsmith and Jack Sawyer. It's significantly better than if TJ goes down and you have Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer. I think that's a completely different defense, a completely different shot at a Super Bowl, because everybody will say, well, it's only for a couple of weeks. What if it's season ending? What if something crazy happens? What if you lose one of these guys for a long time and you have to replace them? That's a real possibility. I don't know if I'm pro trading Alex Highsmith. I don't know if it makes sense. I don't think I'm pro bench Nick Herbig. I'm actually very much so not bench Nick Herbig. He is your starting outside linebacker. He should remain your starting outside linebacker. In my opinion, nothing changes there. But I bet the 49ers are willing to give up a pretty penny for somebody. And if that pretty penny is shiny enough, why wouldn't the Steelers at least have a conversation to say Alex Highsmith's young and he is very, very good? We're not going to keep him after his contract. Nick Herbig's our next starter. We still have TJ Watt. We just signed him to a huge deal. And Jack Sawyer is a dude. I mean, it makes sense, right? It makes a lot of sense. And the Steelers have been willing to negotiate and to listen this year. They traded Minkah Fitzpatrick and George Pickens. What makes you think that they wouldn't have conversations for Alex Highsmith as well? Again, the writing's been on the wall. And I'm almost equally as confident that the Steelers will have that conversation as I am that they will have a wide receiver conversation or many wide receiver conversations, because I think San Francisco is going to call, and I think Omar is not going to hang up that phone, and they're going to have that conversation. And where it goes, I do not know, but I'm saying that is my second highest trade possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is not a left tackle. It is not a replacement for Jalen Ramsey. It is not a running back. It is not anybody. It is a trade out of Alex Highsmith if it is not a trade in for a wide receiver. And I wouldn't be stunned. I don't think I'd be supportive, but I wouldn't be stunned if that happened either. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of Steelers to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. The Pittsburgh Steelers are ready for the Browns. I'm excited for some Dylan Gabriel at Acrisure Stadium, as we all are. It's Friday, which means that I'll be back later for the flagship show. Until then, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.